Is there a strategy that'll help you grow your company faster? CEO Sales Strategies is an investigative business podcast for entrepreneurial people who never stop asking questions. Highly acclaimed sales revenue growth expert Doug C. Brown interviews CEOs, business owners, and professionals who serve them to uncover and share actionable tips and methods behind their bulletproof sales strategies. Topics covered on the show include their failures, struggles, secrets, and processes that help them succeed in selling millions to billions of dollars of their products and services, all with the sole aim of helping you grow your business. If you are eager to know the most effective sales secrets from the A players of the game, then the CEO Sales Strategies podcast is certainly the place to be.
Hey, this is Doug C. Brown with the CEO Sales Strategies podcast, bringing you another episode with two amazing guests, some unique people today, Susan and Martin Fisher. And we're going to talk about what they call Body of Nine. Body of Nine is a physiological, I would say, state that we are all born with. We all have what they call a natural number. This has got science back behind this. It's not just some fictitious, practice. And when we're born, we have a specific body, and we can all see that in different bodies of different people. And those bodies actually determine a lot more than we actually thought in the past, which is how do we act or want to interact with the world and other people? And they've been studying this for many years. Have over 8,000 people that they've worked with regarding this, and they've come up with the Body of Nine, which means we all have one natural number from 1 to 9, and that's how they categorized it. Once you understand what these numbers are, you can interact with people in the way they want to be interacted with. The cool part about this is, to me anyways, that these numbers don't change throughout life. So, babies are born, they have their own natural number. People who are in their, late 90s, even hundreds, same natural number. So the same traits and characteristics are carried across that natural number. Where if you look at personality tests or other types of tests, they can change with the actual time of life that we're in, because, in your teens, for example, you might have one type of personality, and then through life, because you've been through some trials and tribulations and some successes and really wonderful things have happened, our personality can shift a little bit on these tests, or sometimes even dramatically shift on these tests. So, when you're looking at, say, a DISC test, for example, like myself, I used to be a very high D earlier on in my life, and I was an I. And, over my life, as I've grown a little older and matured a little more in my life's experience, my I has become much higher than my D, right? So it's one of those situations that things can change over time with personality tests, but with the Body of Nine, what I found is it's based on physiology mostly, that is natural physiology. And so it doesn't shift over time as much. So once you understand that, people who, based on their number, love eye contact, for example, and people who don't love eye contact based on their number, you can interact, because business is really all about relationships and communication no matter what. And life in general is about that. And, hey, we're going to have to communicate, even if we're internet marketers. I have people sometimes that say, I'm an internet marketer, I don't talk to people. No, you really do. You talk to people that are helping support your business one way or another, maybe vendors, or you have assistants and things like that. So this is the reason I'm bringing this particular podcast, because people have been requesting, when we talk about sales assessments or personality assessments or other type of assessments, I want to bring those forth for you. So let's go forward to the interview with Susan and Martin, and we'll introduce them right now. Susan and Martin, thank you so much for being here on the CEO Sales Strategies podcast, and welcome.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
It sure is.
So you guys, you're married, number one, and running your company together. So that's a wonderful thing. We might delve into that a little more, like, how do you do that type of thing? Because sometimes people listen to this, they're working with family or spouses, and they're like, oh my gosh, my family's driving me crazy. But we're here to talk about assessments and utilizing assessments and, the different types of assessments out there. A lot of this audience here is B2B, growing their companies. You folks have something called Body of Nine, and I've had the experience of actually going through and having the experience myself, and that's been really cool. Why don't you tell people what Body of Nine is, and there we can continue on with the assessment side.
Well, Body of Nine is based on an understanding that we are physio-spiritual beings. And that sounds a little woo-woo, but what I'm really saying is that we can, using the Body of Nine system, do an assessment and identification, if you will, that is body-based, not questionnaire-based. So I'm sure your audience has done DISC and Strength Finders, Myers-Briggs, etc., because we all, and in business, need to know who we're working with, and also importantly, who our clients are going to be.
But Body of Nine is based off of 30 years of research that Martin and I have conducted with over 8,000 people from around the world, over 50 countries, most races, and this truth about our bodies, that we are physio-spiritual beings. There are 9 centers in our body. When we're born, one of those 9 is born active, and it shapes how we experience life. It's the nature that underlies the nurture. A lot of the other systems really focus on our nurture and how we learn to cope. This gets you back to who you were born to be, your natural purpose, your natural skills and abilities, the things that you haven't had to work at over the course of your life. And it crosses race, nationality, gender, all of these things. You have more in common with somebody that you share a natural number with than you do with anybody in your family or that you work with who does not share your natural number.
So I can tell people, because I've done this. So basically, it's how your body posture really is, who you are, right? So anybody who's ever had a child or multiple children can experience this. You know, child number 1 comes out, has a personality, and child number 2 comes out, 3. They all have distinctly different personalities right from the get-go. And so what I learned from Body of Nine was there's 9. Is it archetypes? I mean, could I use that word, or maybe that's
bodysuit, earth suits. You know, we use natural number just because it's hard to describe it, because it encompasses so much. It's so much more than just personality. It's how you move, how you learn to move. So your kid comes out, one kid learns to move using their low back, the next one comes out using their throat. It's weird stuff, you know, when you look at it.
And it's not just the kids.
No.
You know, the parents are different too. So
right.
In any family, the parents and the children don't share the same natural number.
And in your workplace, most workplaces are pretty diverse. And, you know, there's always somebody in your workplace that you don't understand. Like, why does that person do that? Or somebody that you always have trouble with. And this starts to explain, because when we're born, we're not necessarily supported in our natural strength because nobody understands us physiologically, right? And then we get this nurture that layers on top, which takes us away from our nature. And then we go out into the workplace and we're expected to function with people that we didn't grow up with, so we're not even familiar with their ways of being. And we might have been traumatized by 1 or 2 or 3 of the natural numbers, which makes continuing relationships with other people that share that natural number can be very challenging as well. So this is it's a simple yet complex understanding of how human beings actually show up. So it's both a modality, like the Enneatype and the other personality systems, but it's actually an underlying context as well.
And one of the major differences between Body of Nine and the other assessment tools is, once you know your Strength Finder, or once you've done the DISC, or once you've done Myers-Briggs, that's a static place in your life. And if you answer the questions in a certain way, they're going to give you a certain answer, which is perfectly fine. It works great most of the time. But there's nothing much you can do about it after that. You can know the DISC numbers of everyone in the company that you work with, perhaps. And that's useful for knowing where they were at the time they took the test. With Body of Nine, we can predict how people are going to get on, because in any company, anybody can do any job, but how they do it's going to be very specific to their natural number. And we can give physical movements. There are simple physical adjustments that you can make to be a better you. And if you really want to do it, you can actually learn how to activate all 9 centers in your body, which enables you to get on with anybody easier.
So I think you're bringing up something really important, Martin, because when personality tests are taken at a static place in time, like, you know, DISC, for example, at one time I was a higher D than I was a higher I, but they were kind of equal almost, but I was higher in the D. Over time, the I has gone up and the D has dropped, right? So I think it's important to understand assessments as we're going to use them. But with Body of Nine, what I got out of that was you're born with this, and it's consistent through your whole life because that's physiologically who we are. And
Absolutely.
so, because when I've looked at assessments in the past, and I have a lot of them, and it's like, okay, well, I'm this type or I'm that type. And it's like, oh my gosh, every company is using different assessments. There's thousands of assessments out there. So how do you actually use it in practicality in the business world? Because this is all about communication and harmonious relationships of a workplace. And so what is birth, right, if you will, as your natural number, what you folks do, all the way through old age, if you will, it's still consistent across the board. That's what I got out of it.
It really is. You can see it in a newborn baby, and we've identified people that are in their 90s, and the musculature of the body, the way the body is shaped, that is still the balance point for old people. It doesn't matter where you are in the range. You're using a very particular part of your body to initiate movement and to balance your body. Your face is shaped a very particular way. The quality of your eyes is specific. How you move, these things don't change. And there's, you can learn to activate the others, but the one you're born with, you've been cultivating since you were born. The more supported you are from your nature, the more that shows up in the course of your life as your superpower. What I find is, what we see very commonly is in the 30s, people go into this procreative period where they're just making things, doing things, building families, building companies, whatever it is, their passion. And then they hit their 40s and say, wow, maybe there's more to life. And that's when they go back to trying to find their way to their nature. So when we sit down and we identify somebody, we know them at the level of their nature. And when we tell them about themselves, they're like, how do you know this about me? They're astounded with the accuracy that we can tell them about themselves when we've only met them for 5 minutes without asking them a single question about who they are. The only questions we ask are, does our description resonate for you?
Because we listened to 8,500 people, and they gave us the gift of telling us about their reality. And so we boiled that down to the basics for each of the 9 natural numbers. And as you experienced, your family's 4 people, all different, we were able to describe the private, personal part of you that gets past the underlying, okay, how would you respond to this question kind of thing, and be able to predict the easy parts of the relationships and the difficult parts of the relationships.
Right.
And most of the systems that are out there that are personality based, they ask you a variety of questions, and then they ask them in a different form, and you might answer them based on how your mother wants you to answer them,
or your boss,
or how are you feeling in the moment, or how would you like to be. We rarely actually answer them from our core nature. And so this uncovering of the core nature now reveals the part of you that you love. This is the part of you that's awesome. You don't have to work at this. It's just beautiful. Like your ability to create change, see potential, and build a better world for people is just built into your body. Mark and I don't have that particular set of gifts built into our bodies, but you do. So that's what happens when you do your podcast. You're making the world a better place. It's awesome.
Thank you. So I wanted to bring you both on because the reality is that business is run by communication. I mean, all sales are done via communication. And, if somebody's, for example, they want to hire somebody, one of the biggest challenges they have when they hire somebody is like, okay, they go to an interview and they just use the interview per se as their tool. And so, somebody passes the interview. Well, or they give them a resume in an interview. Well, let's face it, resumes are not 100% accurate. I mean, people embellish upon these resumes all the time. Why? Because it's a marketing tool to get them into to be able to, go through. So then they go through an interview and they seem likable, but people know how to actually fake interviews as well, right? So then one of the biggest complaints I hear from people is I hired this person and then all of a sudden they're not the same person after I've hired them, right? And so, or in the reverse, a lot of candidates will say, I got into this job, especially sales candidates, and they say it wasn't well represented, right? So communication is a key component in the success or lack of success in a business in itself. And we want people also, when we hire them, to represent our company in the way we want them to represent that, right? So if we're hiring people who have disproportionate body of 9 numbers, if you will, to use your terminology, then what we're going to have is going to have conflict basically going on within the company, which is going to create the client experience on the outside. So with personality tests, like you said, they can answer those.
You just raised so many issues.
Please continue.
Yeah, okay. Let's start at the beginning, and I will repeat what I said at the beginning. Anybody can do any job, but how they're going to do it is completely different. Actually not completely different.
Based off their natural number. Yeah.
So first thing to be aware of is that in the natural numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4 put relationship above progress. Natural numbers 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 put progress above relationship. That's not to say both don't do both, but the first thing is, do you want someone that's relationship focused, or do you want something that's process focused?
In the role.
So that's the first. So every communication that we do, and depending on who you believe, it's either 40% or 90% of our communication is body based, body to body. Then there's tone, and then there's what the words actually mean. So our body's natural number based, tone very much based on your natural number, and the words you use and what they mean is very natural number based. So communication without knowing this, I'm surprised that the humanity can communicate at all, because the words that we use,
we really don't.
the words that we really don't, the words that we use mean something different. So one of the things about understanding that there are 9 physiologically different kinds of people is, okay, as a salesperson, what kind of person am I looking for? And we work with realtors all the time, because half the people that the realtor want to talk to wants the relationship. They care about the house, but they want the relationship. The other half doesn't care, just sell the house. Right. So that's true for every sales situation. And within your company, you want a variety, right? You really don't want to have every salesperson that's just about connection. You don't want to have every salesperson that's just about getting stuff done, because you need that mixture.
Really, ideally, you'd have a team of one connector and one transformer, as we call them, working together, because then you've got more of the skill set covered that is natural and easy, for example.
And so into the interview process, one of the things that we don't want to happen is have people to be what we'd call natural numberist.
Right. We really don't want you to hire people based off their natural number.
But if you know the explicit steps you need to get done, and you know people's natural number, you can put the right person in the right job. For example, we wouldn't want someone with natural number 7 out on their own, sitting in a field office with no one to talk to, because they won't be able to do their job, because it's about interaction with other people, not relationship, but interaction.
Right. That's true of 6s and 7s, for example. 6s and 7s actually need input from all of the other natural numbers in order to do the job that they do. And without that input, they're going to be very lost and unsupported and not able to move forward.
And we do see preponderance of numbers of people doing particular types of jobs, but that doesn't mean they have to be that number to do that job.
No, it's just how the person will do the job. So really, for example, if you have your financial person is a natural number 8, your financial organization will be very organized. It will be very structured. People will understand their jobs. They will do them well. They will be well supported. And that is highly likely to be a very successful financial organization. But it may be, if you don't understand that your boss is a natural number 8, it may be very hard for you. If you're a 1, 2, 3, or 4, and you want to go into your boss and have a chat with her before you sit down and do your work, that's not going to be her thing. And so to not, like say, oh, I just hate my boss because she never, there's no humanity there or whatever. People make up all sorts of things about other people based off their behavior using their own lens.
So the lesson there is, if the person you're with or communicating with isn't responding the way you expect, it's because they're not like you.
Right. They're not like you.
And so the first place is, okay, what is our commonality here? What's the common ground? We are sharing either a desire to buy, sell, or we're sharing the culture of the company. We want the culture of the company to succeed. So the communication is vital. And you mentioned the front, people that live together, work together. Well, husband and wife, we've been together 14 years. And I left to form this organization with Susan, my boss at the time said, you'll be back. No, because Susan and I know each other's natural number. I know the gifts that she's giving me. I know when she does stuff, it's not to piss me off. It's because this is actually a gift that I need to look at and say, how can I use this gift?
And we are constantly challenging each other to be bigger and better at our individual. The other thing that's really amazing about this work is I know how he works, what his decision-making process is, how he plans and organizes himself, which is completely different than the way I do. He has a stack, and it's last in, first out. So I've learned not to give him some low priority thing when he's already working on something that's high priority for me, because it'll derail him and send him another direction.
Susan works with a queuing structure. I just give her stuff and eventually it pops out at the top and comes out. So knowing how we work, and in many companies, and certainly when I was in business, doing business in larger companies, and I was managing teams of whatever, trying to have people work the way that I did was never going to work, because everyone's different. And knowing what are the strengths? This thing needs to be done right now. Nothing else can get in the way. You give to a certain natural number. This one requires getting a whole bunch of people to agree. Different natural number. This one's okay. Go and call each of our customers and see what they need from us. Different natural number. Everyone can do it, but some people are going to enjoy doing it.
Right.
And that's an important thing.
Right. It's like, what's your genius?
Yeah.
This tells you what your genius is, right? When we're all working on our genius, everything flows much more effectively. But if I gave Martin a job of calling all our customers, he could certainly do it and have lovely conversations, but it's not using his genius.
And I wouldn't probably enjoy it, with all due respect.
Right. It would be very challenging.
But if someone said to me, okay, here's a problem, go solve it and find out the 5 ways that needs to be solved and what do we need, it's instant, because it's built into it.
Makes a lot of sense. We're speaking with Susan and Martin Fisher, and they have a company called Body of 9. It's BODYOF number9.com. So I recommend you check that out. So we're talking about the use of assessments, basically, to have better communications, better relationships within our company and with our clients. So if somebody is process focused, like you said, Martin, earlier on, does that mean they're methodical too? I mean, is that kind of one of those things?
Not necessarily. So 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 we talk about them as being about transformation. So 5s like to hold a relatively big picture. They build a framework of understanding. So they usually have a lot of knowledge. So if you want to know about something, you go ask your 5. And if they know it, they will tell you.
Big picture.
Big picture.
Overall architect rather than the detailed guy that's going to build the cogs.
Good team leaders, because they create space for their people to grow into what they could be. Usually people like to work for natural number 5s. Natural number 6s are the movers. They can be in a sales position. They could be in a process position. As long as they're passionate about what they're doing and it's alive for them, they're going to do a great job. 7s, they should be in the visionary positions and the process creation improvements, the places where new information needs to be brought in order to understand what direction we should be going. And our 8s, they ground everything. They make it real. They're the people that organize things and do things relatively methodically.
Safety, QA, etc.
Yes. And then the 9s, they hold the biggest picture of all because they operate at a kind of universal level. So your 9s make great leaders as long as they know how to communicate down into the details as well. These are the big, let's do it without having any force on the world. They're the Nelson Mandelas and Martin Luther Kings of the world. Big thinkers, big holders of space, but they often get misunderstood because they have a very neutral face. And so people don't know, like, well, what are they thinking? So they're hard to read. And they talk at a very high level. So they can be hard to work for because people don't understand why they're saying what they're saying. So going back to the communication, knowing this lets you, as a boss or as an employee, at least know your own personal gifts and then understand that the others are different. So how do I adjust?
And as a manager, what is it that people need from me? For example, natural number 1s, great designers. A fantastic idea about beauty, how the relationships work, and make great designs, great pictures.
Great writers,
all those things.
Yeah.
But they need to be reassured that their work is good, because they're going to keep going past the point of perfection for everybody else. So knowing as a boss how to support each of the natural numbers really helps for a happier team.
Yeah, because each of them needs some different support and motivation and structure of their jobs, and understanding what they need makes a huge difference.
And for everyone that's listening, now that we're going post-COVID, the question is back in the office, not back in the office. And there's a whole bunch of people that really need that connection with each other physically.
Right.
And there's a whole bunch of other people that don't. And in fact, aren't going to work as well in there.
Yeah, they need to be integrated into the team, because when you don't have all 9 present, it actually leaves a hole. And it's not as easy to create things as when you have all 9 present, especially with consciousness, because each of the natural numbers does a job in the creation process. And if you pull a cog out of the wheel, you got a bump, and nobody knows how to fill that hole. So in an organization, that consciousness of the 9 can make a huge difference in making everything a lot easier. So if one person always wants to work at home, well, they have to be brought into the fold from time to time, in some way that their input is also included. So it's an interesting set of challenges. I mean, we've all learned to work at home over the last 2 years. We all, half of us love it. I love it. But some of us really don't.
So how does somebody, like, if they're listening, they go, okay, this makes sense. There'll be some people listening to this that go, well, that's really woo. I don't really, want to play in that space, and that's okay, right? But there's also a percentage of people are going to be saying, okay, this makes sense. I'm in my company, I'm managing, or I have employees, or I have a team that I'm working with, and geez, not to use your name, Susan, but I'm going to anyway. Susan, she is, I like her, but I can't figure out how to work with her, and I'm not really sure what the issue is. Right. So,
and that happened to me many, many times over the course of my career, because I'm loud, fast, and powerful, and
right.
Not everybody can work with that.
Right. But if they understand where you're coming from, then they'll understand how to communicate with you, and you'll get what you need from them, and they'll get, because I can imagine sometimes you're loud and powerful to get your point across, right?
Yes,
and some people aren't hearing that, so you'll be more loud and powerful in order to be heard. So it's, but for some people, loud and powerful can be a bit scary, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And so then they'll tend to shut down, and now we're not getting the productivity or the expertise out of their ability to be natural within an organization.
Yeah, good example.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just say that was a good example.
Oh, cool, thanks. I'm learning, and that's what I want to bring forth. It's like, okay, if somebody wants to learn more about Body of Nine, because a lot of times, even when I've looked at, even DISC, right? People go, oh, it's these 4 quadrants. Nah, it's a lot more under the sea than just these 4, specific quadrants. And how do you deal with that? And for me, things sometimes get to be, and you all know my natural number, but it's like, for me, I like things quick and digestible, right? And so if I got to spend 3 months trying to figure out all this stuff, it's not really, so how do I, with Body of Nine, how do I make this easy on me? What's the first step if I say, okay, you know what, I bought into the concept, people born at birth with this, and so it's not going to change. So if I study this, then it's not going to shift all over the place like a DISC or other, services that are out there. How does somebody engage and kind of figure it all out?
Well, first of all, I want to address the woo-woo thing. And while it isn't woo-woo, I can see why people think it is. It's very body-based. And it's also really the early adopters that come to us, because they see the competitive advantage that is involved in being able to understand people at the level that we understand people, and having people understand each other.
You can create a workforce. Like, our team is so happy because they're all seen for who they are. They get supported for who they are. It's a huge competitive advantage.
And so the people we work with, and we've worked with quite a few companies now, mainly around Bozeman, but we have traveled. And it's very much about hiring us to come out, identify the team in person, because we can do it over Zoom. But the physical reality is that being in person with someone shows the physical strength that comes with your natural number.
It also helps them to learn how to embody their connection to themselves. There's a simple physical movement and adjustment that each of the natural numbers has. There are 9 different ones. And unless you know that, you don't, like, you're in a meeting and you're having a hard time. For me as a 6, if I'm getting louder and louder, how do I regulate? So I lift my chest and I expand it, and I can regulate.
Oh, I just sit up and I regulate.
For you, a focus on the third eye, taking a second to bring in whatever's wanting to come in.
So it's basically,
it's body based. So that's the first step.
Yeah,
right?
We normally do sort of a couple of day workshop where the first day is the identification discussion. And then it's like, how do you guys work together as an organization? Are there any holes in the organization? Are there any people wrong peg in the wrong hole? And so, we've had quite a lot of success in making sure that organizations flow more smoothly. And then the culture changes, because this is a very culture-based, life is very culture-based in reality.
Yeah, and the leaders are going to have different natural numbers than their organization does. And understanding, like, okay, if you've got a 7 leader, they're going to be visionary, and they may be changing the vision frequently. So unless they have a team behind that visionary that says, okay, do you really want to change this one? Because we've gone in this direction and we've committed this much. And so having people that know that they need to sort of stand up to those changes to make sure that the company is lined up behind the vision and not being wagged all over the place by that vision.
So basically, to answer your question directly, it's like, give us a call, set up a consultation, and we will let you know how we can help your company.
Yes. And then for individuals, you can get identified online, and then you can read our books. We have 2 books on Amazon that tell you all about our system. So if you're curious and you don't want to bring it into your company, but you want to start with yourself, that's a great way. Call us up or go on our website, bodyof9.com, and book your individual identification. Or as you did a family identification. It makes a huge difference. And when you do it with a group, we also like to do executive teams together, for example. That's really powerful, and it starts to explain the things that work and the things that don't work.
Yeah, I found it fun when we were doing it too, because we not only the family able to communicate and talk, but it was also we all work together because we're a family company, right? So we have other people outside the family, direct family, who really become more like family members, right? So it's kind of like we all figure out how to work together. They'll come over for a meal or whatever, and we'll work business, but we'll also work personal connections on the whole situation. And I like to also address this woo-woo thing too, because like sometimes woo-woo gets a really bad rap, and sometimes it's but it's like so metaphysical or whatever. People are out there and they're chanting in the fields, trying to envision butterflies and all that stuff. That's not what we're talking about.
No.
Right. I remember there was a time when sales was looked at as almost woo-woo as a soft skill, right? Because universities would never embrace the concept of selling, because it was like, oh, that's not a necessary skill. And so I look at what you do as it's a hard science based on the fact that it's immovable through the years, right? I mean, people's bodies are people's bodies. And once people understand what those are, then they'll be able to know how to communicate with one another. Just, even if it's just a little bit better, sometimes that's even good is good enough.
One of the simplest parts of it is 1, 2, 3s, and 4s actually need eye contact in order to do what they do as a 1, 2, 3, and 4, which is build a particular kind of relationship. So 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 don't. You either hear out there, oh, it's disrespectful not to make eye contact, or why are you looking at me like that? So you have that understanding. If you just know, like none of the 3 of us need eye contact, but I think your 2 girls did, right? And just knowing that you start the connection by looking them in the eye, because that's what they need in order to feel like you actually can hear them.
And there's the predictability part of this. In terms of the science side, we can predict outcomes based on numbers. It's that simple. And so it's the only part that people may think of woo is like, you're looking at my body and you can tell me about my life. Well, yeah, we can.
We can.
As it turns
and
out.
we've worked with 8,000 people from around the world, 50 nationalities. That is a big enough sample size for us to be able to demonstrate that this is true.
And it's we know the muscles and the bones and the fascia involved in each of the natural numbers, and the way to stand for each of the natural numbers. This is not something that is, well, we think it's about there. This is not here's the center that you're going to do because this is your center. No, these are the bones that you're using to be you.
Right.
The muscles, bones, and fascia. The other thing that is really important is that we have documented all this. This has been done anecdotal science, right? We have stood in front of so many people, and their bodies are very specifically describable.
And the movements.
Right. And if you think about radio waves, right? They were discovered, but they didn't know how to measure them for quite a while, right?
Hertz came up with it in 18 something. Radio waves have always existed, but it wasn't until someone came up with a crystal that you could actually detect radio waves.
And now what can detect the different natural numbers is people that are trained to do it. So it's very easy to train you to do it. You have to learn to activate all 9 centers, and then you have to learn how to support another person and from that activation within your own body.
But we teach people all the time. It's a 5-6 month process. But.
Yeah, we have a certification program that's designed for coaches and holistic practitioners who actually want to integrate this in so they can accelerate the impact that they have out in the world.
So trainers that are listening to your podcast that want to have the advantage of being able to take this into the companies they work with, give us a call.
Right.
Yeah, and I think it's so critical for people in sales to understand if somebody doesn't want eye contact, and we've been taught to have eye contact, and we're going at that eye contact, it's almost like we're staring them down and making them feel uncomfortable, right?
If we're not a 1, 2, 3, or 4, that's exactly right.
And vice versa.
And vice versa.
Right. Yeah. And then the people are like, hey, I don't look at somebody in the eye and they need that, then they're going to feel like, oh, what are you hiding, kid?
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yep.
Right. So there's a lot of practicality to understanding this. And I think the reason I wanted to bring this to the listeners of this podcast is because, they rely upon us to actually bring them legitimate information. And, when I went through this, I was like, this is pretty accurate. Of course, there were some things I had to sit back and go, is this really me? But for the most part, it was pretty spot on. And even the family was like, that's you, everything. So
Often our families know us better than we know ourselves.
yeah, exactly. So, well, I want to thank both of you for being here on the CEO Sales Strategies podcast and entertaining people and giving them great information so they might be able to better take this into their business and their personal lives and improve both of them. Anything more, like go to bodyof9.com, anything else they should be looking for when they hit the website, or anything you'd like to add?
There's basically two sides of the website. One is for you as an individual. The other is for you as a coach or holistic practitioner for the certification side. And just go there, explore. There's all kinds of information. We have a blog. So if you want to know more, that's a good place to start. And then we do have courses that
and the takeaway
available.
is there's 9 physiologically different kinds of people mostly around you are not like you, your family, your brothers and your sisters, your parents, or your children are not like you, and give people the space to be not like you.
Right. If you just start with, you have no idea why they're doing what they're doing, you're on the right track.
That's the start of the communication. Don't assume.
Right.
I could make marital jokes about that one, but I'm going to stay away from that. So, all right. Well, Susan, Martin, thank you both for being here. And I really appreciate you being here on the CEO Sales Strategies podcast.
It was great to be here. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Well, that was interesting. I thought it was pretty cool, actually. And they have a lot of good supportive knowledge and experience in doing this with people. And they've been categorizing this for a long period of time. So when I went through this myself, I actually was like, originally I was like, oh, wow, this is pretty accurate. But there were some things that were out there that were like, is that really me? And then as I start going back and looking at it, yeah, some of these things came into alignment. Some of these things I'm still working on, quite frankly. But what I did take out of this whole process, because I did what they call the family, I wanted to make sure I understood, my children and my wife. And what I did take out of this was interesting, because I learned in a certain communication style that I'm communicating with my 2 daughters, for example. I had to adjust a little bit. And as I've been adjusting, I've actually noticed the difference in the bonding aspect between, me and them. And it's been an interesting shift. And so to me, when you can communicate with people on their own, radio wave, if you will, and you understand what that is, and you can adjust your communication style to fit theirs, especially in sales, it's critical to be able to do that. So if you want success, for example. So I highly recommend check this out. And again, if you have any content that you want, brought forth, because this was a specific subject that people are saying, hey, I want to learn more about assessments. I want to know different types of assessments. That's why we brought this particular episode forward with the subject matter that's on there. So as usual, if you want a specific subject brought to the podcast and you want, hey, information, let us know. Reach out to me at Doug@CEOSalesStrategies.com, Doug Brown 123 on the LinkedIn, or call the company directly at 603-595-0303. We'll actually find the source, just like we did here. We'll bring that particular content to you, and you can learn from our efforts bringing that to you. The whole podcast here was started with the original intent just to help people to sell more, help people to understand how to sell to CEOs more. And think about it. If you have a CEO that doesn't like eye contact, but you're staring them in the eye when you're having that conversation, trying to sell to them, and they feel that's threatening to them, you're going to break rapport. This is why understanding how humans communicate and what we can do about that to adjust our communication, because it's incumbent upon us as the selling party to actually make them feel like they're the guest in their own house or the guest in our house. So if you want specific content brought to you, just reach out, let us know what that is. If you want help in growing your revenues in your company, hiring, training, managing, and retaining high-performing 8-player salespeople. If you want help in becoming into the top 1% of sales earners in the world, or you want your team to get there in the top 1% globally, reach out to me. Again, Doug at ceosalesstrategies.com. Give a call to the company, 603-595-0303, or please hit me up at LinkedIn, as some people do. Doug Brown, 1234. That is the LinkedIn handle. If you like this podcast, please subscribe to it if you haven't subscribed. If you know other people who would like this, please share this with them so they can subscribe. And if you really liked it, please give it a 5-star review. The more reviews, the more subscribers I have. Obviously, it makes a big difference in how the search engines look at the algorithms on this particular podcast, and we can reach more people and help more people as we go along. As always, go out, sell something, sell a lot of things, sell them profitably, be happy, and help somebody else be happy in their day by helping them sell what you do and helping them solve problems or get new opportunities. Until next time, this is Doug C. Brown with the CEO Sales Strategies Podcast. We will talk to you again, and to your success.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the CEO Sales Strategies Podcast. What is something that you learned that you could act on today? Don't forget to schedule it now, or it may never get forward momentum. If you find our content valuable, please leave a favorable review and let us know what you liked. Please also share this with others if the content will help them. For our show notes, other episodes, and more interesting content and resources, please visit ceosalesstrategiespodcast.com. See you soon, and to your continued success.